Jim, does public perception factor at all into the decisions about potential call-ups? You know, we knew about it years ago with Piazza. We know that Mike and the Mad Dog brought Mike Piazza here. What about with call-ups like Mark Vientos and Ronny Mauricio?
You know, it's hard to not listen to the PR, to the public or your fan base that's clamoring for guys. You know, if you're the GM, though, you have to paint the expectations. You and I talked about this last week about the expectations of those guys. They are not the answer to a struggling offense right now. They certainly would be contributors. And if you have the ability to find playing time for them or one of them, in addition to the young offensive players that you already have in the lineup with Beatty and Alvarez, then I'd say, all right, let's go ahead and bring them up and, you know, add them to the roster. The hard part is, you know, right now with the offense struggling the way it is, the fan base is clamoring for it, and their expectation is that one of those guys is going to carry them. You have the two best offensive prospects right now from the organization in the big leagues, so adding this third one, you know, isn't going to be quite the same. So I think you try to block that out, but you do hear it, especially if you're yelling, Sal.
It seems like we all agree that the rotation, expensive as it was, is a bit of a cause for concern. So if the Mets are still around or even below 500 at the trade deadline, would you consider moving a big prospect for pitching?
You know what, Hannah, I think you have to, you know, because this team is built to win. I know 500 is you know, mediocre, but as we talked about earlier, you don't have that bar is much lower when it comes to getting to the postseason. We saw the 6th seed last year, the Phillies, get all the way to the World Series. So you don't have to be, you know, much better than 500 to get there. So having said that, I think, though, if they were to move a guy, it better be for somebody under control. I think that, to me, is the biggest issue if you're going to give up a top prospect, is control rather than doing it, you know, for 3 months, a 3-month rental. I think you got to try to get another year out of it. So I think that's why you're buying yourself a little bit of time to decide if you do need a starting pitcher or an offensive piece, or both.
Hey, Jim, for a team like the Mets that obviously wants to get better in a hurry, is there even a point in engaging teams on a big-ticket trade item here in mid-May, or the price is just so prohibitive for these guys at this point that it's not even worthwhile?
Yeah, you know what? It's hard. It's really hard to do a deal now. I mean, you used to be able to do it maybe 10 years ago, but every team that you look at that's struggling, they're all already in a rebuild, so there's nobody that they're willing to move. And then the struggling teams, specifically the White Sox, you know, they don't want to throw up the flag where they're giving up, and now their fan base isn't showing up the rest of the year. So I think that's the one thing that has changed more recently, is an unwillingness for owners and even general managers to pull the plug on a team in mid-May, and it becomes almost impossible to do these deals. And so, you know, you better have the depth. That's why we talked about this. The depth better come into play and should come into play. And I think that's where the Mets are stuck right now, is they've gone to those depth pieces and they haven't produced yet.